The fire started in the trash chute. They said it was my fault. But I was the one who designed the system, and I knew where the real fire was. I could smell it before I even opened my door. Burned plastic, melted wiring, scorched paint. It clung to the hallway like a ghost with unfinished business. When I stepped outside, the third-floor corridor of the Holloway apartments was covered in a greasy gray haze. Emergency lights flickered. My boots stuck slightly to the floor where the fireman's foam hadn't dried yet. I kept to the edge of the hallway as I walked past the blackened trash chute, already taped off. I'd installed that damn thing myself in 1991. I knew every rivet, every bend in the duct, every sealed seam. You don't forget the things you build, especially when they get blamed for burning down half a floor. A paramedic nodded at me. I didn't return it, just kept walking. I wanted to see it for myself, the place where it supposedly all began. I wanted to see what they'd missed. They always miss something. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching from. Outside, the spring air felt thin and artificial, like the breeze didn't dare breathe too deep. The sirens had stopped. The police cars were parked with their lights off now. Fire was out. But something else had just started. They were waiting for me on the front steps. 2 officers in pressed uniforms, clipboards in hand, expressions just a little too polite. "Mr. Grayson," one of them said. Young guy, early 30s, couldn't grow a proper mustache if his life depended on it. "That's me. Silas Grayson, Unit 3B? I nodded. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about the fire." "Of course you would. Mind if we speak inside?" "I do mind, actually." I pointed to the scorched patch on the exterior wall just beneath the third-floor windows. "Building's not exactly safe. I prefer my structural integrity flame-free." The cop blinked, clearly unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. "We just want to understand how it might have started," he said, trying again. "It started in the chute," I said flatly. "Same place it always would have if someone were trying to light this building up like a Christmas tree." "Meaning?" "Meaning," I exhaled, "that if you're about to ask whether I left something burning, or maybe knocked over a candle, you can save your breath." He stiffened slightly. "Do you have a history of electrical issues in your unit?" "Nope. Rewired it myself 2 summers ago. Replaced every breaker." "You want photos?" "I keep records." He exchanged a glance with the other officer. "Is it true you were the building's fire technician back in the 90s? "I didn't just work on this building," I said. "I built it. Security systems, emergency exits, electrical routing. If someone's trying to blame me for this, they picked the wrong damn scapegoat." He tried to keep a neutral face, but his partner was already scribbling notes. "Then maybe you can explain why a gasoline accelerant was found near your unit's trash access," he said. That stopped me cold. "Say that again." He didn't repeat it, just watched me, waiting. So, that's how it was going to be. I folded my arms. "You know what's funny? I got up this morning, made coffee, fed my cat, and read the paper like I always do. I walked by that chute twice. Nothing smelled off. No signs of tampering. But the building's insurance has been under review lately. Big companies sniffing around. So now there's a fire, and wouldn't you know it, the guy living here rent-free is suddenly public enemy number 1. "Rent-free?" the second officer asked. "Agreement with the original owner. Lifetime occupancy in exchange for maintenance and inspections. You want to see the paperwork?" They didn't answer. I leaned closer. "Someone planted that accelerant. And I'm guessing you won't find my fingerprints on it. But you know whose you will." They didn't like that. The younger one cleared his throat. "We're not accusing anyone, Mr. Grayson. This is a standard inquiry." "Right," I said, stepping past them. "And I'm just an old man with a great sense of smell and a longer memory than you'd like." As I reached my door, I noticed it. A subtle scratch on the lock plate. Fresh. Clean. Not my doing. I didn't show a reaction, just unlocked the door and stepped inside. The officers didn't follow. Inside my unit, everything looked untouched, but I've lived here 32 years. I know what untouched really looks like. The file cabinet under the bookshelf had been moved. Not enough for most to notice, but the edge of the rug was misaligned. Someone had opened it, and the file labeled Holloway Fire System, Master Schematic, 1991 was missing. My hands curled into fists. They'd broken into my unit before the fire trucks had even cooled. Someone wanted me framed, not just as the guy who started the fire, as the guy who designed the death trap. Too bad for them, I still had the original blueprints. And better yet, I had the knowledge to read between the lines. I picked up my old satchel from under the coat rack. Inside it was a roll of aged blue paper, my own notes in red pencil still visible. And at the very bottom, wrapped in cloth, my old Minolta camera. I dusted it off, because if someone was going to start a fire in the Holloway apartments and then try to pin it on the only man who knew how every pipe and wire ran, they'd better be damn sure they got everything right. They hadn't, and I was going to prove it. I spent the rest of that day in silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that presses on your chest like a weight. The kind that lets your mind work in overdrive. The kind I hadn't felt since the fire at Station 9, when I watched a good man walk into smoke and never come out. By sunset, I had a plan. Not a complete one, but enough to start pulling threads. I knew 3 things for sure. 1. The fire had been started deliberately. 2. The accelerant had been planted near my chute. 3. Someone had broken into my apartment and taken a file that made me look guilty. Now I just needed proof. I opened the hall closet and pulled out a small, square toolbox, beat up and greasy. Inside was my collection of legacy gear, motion sensors, magnetic switches, old-school analog devices that didn't need Wi-Fi or cloud storage. Tools from before everything got stupid. I was halfway through rewiring a small motion-triggered camera when I heard the knock. 3 light taps. Then 2. I smiled. That was the code. I opened the door. Hey, Mr. G. Oscar. 12 years old. Buzz cut. Hoodie zipped to his chin. The kid was sharp, too sharp for this building. That's why I liked him. You said if something weird ever happened, I should come tell you. Something weird happened? He nodded. The guy with the clipboard. The one from that construction company. He was back today. Marlowe? Didn't know his name. But he was with the lady in heels last time. She wasn't here today, though. He talked to the super. About what? Oscar scratched his head. I dunno. But after he left, Mr. Lopez looked real nervous. He dropped his carrying twice. I looked at the kid. You remember what I taught you? Oscar grinned. Always watch the hands, not the mouth. Smart boy. I motioned him in. Closed the door behind us. You still got that old drone I gave you? The one with the busted gimbal? Yeah. You fix it. I did better, he said, unzipping his backpack. Inside was a palm-sized quadcopter with a mounted GoPro knockoff and a custom battery pack taped to the underside. Tuned the gyro. Replaced the lens. I let out a low whistle. Not bad. He beamed. Want to fly it? Not yet. I need you to help me set up something more old school. 10 minutes later, we were crouched in the 4th floor maintenance corridor, the one nobody used anymore since they sealed the dumbwaiter. I pulled out the motion-activated camera and wedged it into the vent grate across from the fire control panel. Why here? Oscar whispered. Because if someone's going to tamper with the system again, I said, they'll have to come here to do it. The red LED blinked once. Armed. By morning, I was back in my apartment, sipping lukewarm coffee and watching shadows stretch across the floor. No phone calls. No visits. Just quiet. Until the knock. This time it wasn't Oscar. I opened the door to find Linda Havisham, corporate smile, black blazer, clipboard in hand, heels clicking even on carpet. Mr. Grayson, she said with the kind of cheer that smells like poison. Can we talk? Already am. She didn't flinch. We understand the last few days have been stressful. That a fact. She smiled tighter. Our company, Marlowe Urban Developments, is committed to restoring and revitalizing communities. This building is a critical part of our next phase. And frankly, she said, glancing at the scorched walls down the hallway, this fire has raised concerns about safety, liability, even structural integrity. There it was. The setup. You're wasting your breath, I said. I'm not selling. I'm not moving. And I'm not your problem. She sighed, like a teacher disappointed in a slow student. We're offering tenants generous relocation packages. In your case, a full buyout. Don't care. We'd be willing to overlook certain findings, she added. Things that might not look good on paper, like open containers of flammable liquids near your unit. My voice dropped. You're threatening me in my own home? I'm offering you a way out, Mr. Grayson. One that won't involve lawyers. I stepped closer. Let me tell you something, Miss Havisham. I've seen people like you walk into neighborhoods with smiles and blueprints and walk out with everything that made those neighborhoods home. You don't scare me. Think about it, she said, backing away slightly. The longer this goes on, the worse it gets for everyone. She handed me a manila envelope. Call that number by Friday. After that, things get more formal. She left. I didn't open the envelope. I just sat there until the red light on my motion sensor blinked twice. Someone was in the maintenance corridor. I moved fast. Took the back stairwell. Quiet shoes. No noise. By the time I reached the corridor, whoever had been there was gone. But the lock on the control panel was hanging open. They'd tampered with it again. I rushed back to my unit, plugged in the camera module, and began scrubbing through the footage. There he was, Devin Marlowe. No mask, no gloves. He opened the panel, inserted something, couldn't see what. Looked around, then locked it back up and left. Gotcha. I paused the frame. Clear shot of his face. Timestamp. Location. I dropped it into a folder titled Insurance Fraud, Exhibit A. And then I made another copy, and another, and another. Because if someone wanted to burn down this building, and me with it, they should have known better than to leave the system guy alive. The moment I had Marlowe's face on camera, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was hunting. This wasn't about proving my innocence. That was already done, at least to myself. This was about peeling back every filthy layer of their operation and leaving it out for the world to see. Like dragging a rotted mattress into the street and nailing a sign to it. This is what they sleep on. The next morning I shaved. First time in weeks. Put on my old work jacket from the city inspector days. Dark green canvas. Name patch still stitched over the chest. S. Grayson. I dusted off my clipboard, printed out a generic inspection form I found online, and clipped it tight. All I needed now was a reason to walk into Marlowe Urban's office without raising alarms. Turns out they gave me one. I parked across the street from their downtown development site around 11:30 a.m. Big glass building. Gentrified everything. A digital sign blinked out pixelated nonsense about revitalizing community through design. You know, PR speak for kicking people out and paving over their homes. A young intern was out front, pacing nervously with a coffee cup and a badge on a lanyard. When he ducked inside, I made my move. The front door opened with a hydraulic hiss. A bored receptionist looked up from her tablet. "Can I help you?" "Building safety follow-up," I said, flashing the form like a badge. "Got a report of potential fire code violations. Elevator core, HVAC access, emergency egress labeling." She blinked. "They didn't tell me anything about." "They never do," I interrupted, already walking past the lobby desk. "That's why they call it unscheduled." Clipboard. Confident walk. Low voice. I didn't give her a chance to stop me. Old trick I learned decades ago. If you act like you're supposed to be there, most people won't question it. I took the stairs. Elevator has cameras. Stairs don't. 5th floor. Main office. Hall smelled like fresh paint and ambition. Rows of cubicles, glass-walled conference rooms, a big glossy scale model of a future condo complex positioned right in the entryway. I ducked into the copy room, closed the door, pulled out my phone and connected the hidden mic I'd stuck under Marlowe's nameplate back at Holloway, the one on the broken mail panel outside his vacant condo. It had a 50-foot range. And based on his voice pattern last time I saw him, I figured it would pick up something good eventually. Within seconds, the audio crackled to life. Male voice. Mid-40s. Smooth, but irritated. "Told you to handle the old man. Not poke him. Now he's sniffing around, digging into permits." That was Marlowe. Female voice responded, calm but sharp. "Linda, he's bluffing. No court will take the word of a washed-up tenant over a corporation with legal records. And what if he has footage? That panel door wasn't locked all the way. He could have. I hit record. 10 minutes. That's all I needed. They talked like no one could hear. Arrogant people always do. By the time they started complaining about pushback from the city council, I'd heard enough. I slipped back into the hallway, scanned the doors, and found what I was looking for. Planning. Phase 2. Authorized access only. Perfect. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my old Universal Fire Code access key. Not exactly legal. But hey, I helped write the damn standards. Slid it into the lock, twisted. Click. The room smelled like printer toner and fresh ink. Blueprints on the table. Maps. Email threads printed and pinned to corkboards. Financials. Legal documents with internal use only stamped on the bottom. And there, in red marker on the master timeline, Holloway demo date. May 17th today was April 25th. They weren't just trying to force tenants out, they were already scheduling demolition. And then I saw it. A scanned copy of a fake inspection report with my name typed at the bottom. Signature forged. Claiming that the fire systems at Holloway had expired, that I had neglected multiple violations, that the building was non-compliant. I took out my phone and snapped the hell out of it. Every page. They wanted me gone? Now I was staying for good. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching from. That evening, back in my apartment, I printed the photos, taped them to the wall above my desk, added a sticky note under each. Fraud. Forgery. Witness. It looked like an old-school detective board. Oscar walked in and stopped cold. Whoa. I turned to him. You wanted to help. Here's your chance. He looked up at the photo of Marlowe. You gonna send this to the cops? I shook my head. Not yet. Why not? I looked down at the folder labeled Phase 2, then at the camera footage, then at the printed demolition schedule, because I want everyone to see it at the same time. On record, with no room for spin. Oscar grinned. You're gonna go public? I nodded. Good, he said. They tried to lie about you. Time to flip the story. I didn't answer, because the plan wasn't just to flip the story. It was to end theirs. By Thursday, I had a manila envelope in my hand, 36 pages thick. Every photo, every forged document, every transcript from my wire. Printed, indexed, labeled. I made 3 copies. One for the city council, one for a reporter I trusted, and one for my safe. I stapled a yellow post-it on the front. If something happens to me, publish this. Then I got in my car and drove. First stop, Eleanor Michaels, local reporter from the Callahan Journal. She used to cover school boards and bake sales. Now she sniffed out corruption like a bloodhound. The kind of journalist who still wore a leather-bound notebook in her back pocket like a weapon. She met me at the park bench behind City Hall. You sure you want to do this, Silas? She asked, flipping through the first few pages. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Once I print this, she said, you'll have their full attention. They already tried to burn my life down, I said. What's left to threaten? She paused, looked me dead in the eye. You. I nodded. That's why I made 3 copies. Second stop, City Zoning Committee. I handed the package to a clerk who looked like she hadn't slept since college. Urgent corruption evidence, I told her. She rolled her eyes until she saw the front page. Suddenly, I had a supervisor on the line. 2 more people appeared with clipboards. I didn't stay long. I didn't need applause. Just wanted the right people nervous. That night, I cooked dinner like normal. Baked beans, fried onions, cornbread. The way Martha used to make when the weather turned. Comfort food. Something solid. Something real. At 9:47 p.m., the knock came. Not the polite kind. 3 loud bangs. Like someone was checking the hinges. I didn't answer. I just slid the security chain in place and stood behind the door. Silence. Then a voice low male measured. You think you're clever, Grayson. I didn't reply. You think you're gonna win this. But you're not fighting a slumlord. You're fighting a corporation. And corporations, don't forget. Still no answer. You've got 1 shot to walk away. Quietly. Before this gets ugly. Then footsteps. Down the hallway. Quick, purposeful. Like someone who didn't want to be seen. I waited 5 minutes before unchaining the door. Oscar was in the hallway, eyes wide. Was that? Yeah. You want me to call someone? No, why not? I locked eyes with him. Because I want them to call someone. The next morning, something changed. A city inspector showed up at the building. Not from my complaint, from theirs. Suddenly, they wanted to play defense. Get ahead of the story. Control the damage. The guy did a full walkthrough. Wrote down half-truths and exaggerated claims. I followed him every step of the way, pointing out which items were legitimate and which were smoke. When we got to the control panel, I pulled out a printed photo, Marlowe with his hand inside the fuse box. Would you like to see the footage too? I asked. He went pale. You have video? I do. And more copies than you can count. He didn't finish the inspection. Just mumbled something about reviewing internally and left in a hurry. Good. Let the panic spread. That afternoon, Linda came back. This time she didn't knock. She was standing in the hallway when I opened the door, arms crossed, lips tight. You crossed a line, she said. I didn't respond. You think exposing us makes you noble? All you're doing is slowing down progress. Stalling what's already inevitable. I smiled. Cold. Deliberate. You broke into my apartment. Forged my name. Tried to paint me as a criminal. And when that didn't work, you sent someone to intimidate me. We offered you a way out. You offered me a grave with flowers on top. She stared for a second, then leaned in. This doesn't end the way you think it does. I leaned in too. No, it ends the way I make it end. I closed the door in her face. Let her take that back to Marlowe. Let them both sit with it. Because from now on, I wasn't just a problem they needed to solve. I was a problem they couldn't reach without drawing blood. And if they wanted a war, they'd better bring more than threats. They'd better bring lawyers, fire hoses, and body bags. That night, I walked up to the roof. Looked over the edge of the building I helped wire and weld. The same roof where I once stood with Martha on our 10th anniversary and watched fireworks from the stadium downtown. Now that same roof might be bulldozed in 3 weeks. Unless I stopped them. My phone buzzed. Text from Oscar. Check your email. Got something good. I opened it. Grainy security cam footage from the development office. Oscar had hacked a feed. It showed Marlowe and Linda shredding documents. Timestamped. 7:14 p.m. That was all I needed. Destruction of evidence. I smiled. You want to play dirty? I can get dirtier. By Monday morning, the story was out. Front page of the Callahan Journal, right under the fold. Local developer linked to fire, forged documents in eviction scandal. There was my name, my building, and a blurry still of Devin Marlowe hunched over the fuse panel, courtesy of Oscar and his drone footage. The article didn't hold back. Eleanor Michaels laid it all out. The falsified inspection reports, the mysterious accelerant, the forged signature, the planned demolition. She quoted me directly. They wanted me out of the way. But I don't burn easy. By noon, City Hall was flooded. Emails. Phone calls. Press inquiries. One councilwoman called for an emergency review of all contracts involving Marlowe Urban. The mayor issued a vague statement about respecting senior citizens and revisiting redevelopment ethics. Politicians speak. But it meant one thing. They were rattled. Good. But the real prize came at 3:27 p.m. when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Grayson? This is Assistant District Attorney Carla DeWitt. I sat down. Yes, ma'am. I've been reviewing the files you submitted to the zoning board. We believe there's a criminal case here. I didn't say anything. Just waited. We'd like to meet in person. Tomorrow morning. And we'd like you to bring everything, original footage, signed statements, digital backups. I've got it all. Good, she said. Because I think we're about to make someone very uncomfortable. That night, someone broke into my mailbox. Didn't even try to hide it. Just tore the latch straight off. Inside, a small plastic bag, charred paper, melted fuse wire, and a photo of me taken from behind on the roof last night. No note, no message, just a warning. I stared at it a long time, then picked up the photo and slid it into a fresh evidence folder. Labeled it Intimidation Attempt Number 2. I called Oscar. Get the backups ready. All of them. All of them. Send them to your cousin in Chicago. Email copies to the reporter. Encrypt the drone footage. We're going nuclear." Oscar didn't ask questions. He just said, "You got it, Mr. G." At 9 a.m. the next morning, I sat across from ADA DeWitt in a concrete office that smelled like printer toner and stale coffee. She was in her 40s. No nonsense. Blazer sleeves rolled to the elbows. A pen tucked behind her ear like a scalpel. Her assistant wheeled in a laptop cart. I handed over my hard drives and printed packets. They got to work immediately. "This is solid," she said after 15 minutes. "Fraud. Attempted arson. Conspiracy to intimidate a witness. Multiple zoning violations. If half of this checks out, we've got enough for an indictment." "Half will check out," I said. "The rest will lead to more." She nodded. "What do you want out of this?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I want the demolition halted. I want Marlowe charged. And I want my building left the hell alone." She leaned back. "That last one's political, but the rest we can work with." That was enough for now. Back at Holloway, the hallway was buzzing. Word had spread. Residents stopped me at the stairwell, the lobby, the laundry room. "Is it true? Are we safe now? Did you really catch them?" I told them the truth. This isn't over. But we're not cornered anymore. That night, someone slid a handwritten note under my door. It read, "Thank you. We were too scared to fight. But you showed us how." There was no name. Just a key taped to the bottom of the page. I recognized it immediately. Master key. Maintenance grade. Old brass model with a worn ridge near the tip. One of the original 3 made when the building opened in '89. I held it in my hand for a long time. Somewhere in the building, someone still believed in it. In what it used to be. In what it could be again. I slipped the key onto my ring. But Marlowe wasn't done. Not yet. Because at 2:03 a.m., a black SUV pulled up across the street from Holloway. Headlights off. Engine idling. I saw it from my window. 5 minutes later, someone spray-painted the lobby door. "Snitches get ashes." I didn't call the police. I called Oscar. "Run the footage. Front camera. Get me a license plate." 10 minutes later, he texted it to me. I traced it myself. Ties to a private security firm owned by a Marlowe investor. Perfect. I added it to the file. Intimidation attempt number 3. They still didn't get it. They thought I'd get scared. That I'd back down. But every time they tried to shut me up, I only got louder. Because I wasn't just some tenant anymore. I was a witness. I was a weapon. And now I was the fuse. They raided Marlowe Urban on a Wednesday morning. Not quietly. No early whispers, no silent subpoenas, no hush-hush emails. Just 6 unmarked Crown Vics, 2 squad vans, and 1 news chopper hovering overhead by 9 a.m. The footage hit local TV before the second elevator even touched the ground. I watched it all live. Devin Marlowe escorted out in cuffs. Sunglasses on, jaw clenched, trying to look like it didn't matter. Like he wasn't sweating bullets under that tailored jacket. Linda followed 20 minutes later. She wasn't in cuffs. Yet, but her face looked like something cracked beneath it. Like her polished expression had finally peeled back far enough to show the steel underneath. She didn't glance at the cameras. She didn't have to. The reporters followed anyway. By noon, 3 names were trending on local Twitter. Marlowe, Grayson, Holloway. That's when the phone call started. First from a local TV affiliate. They wanted to sit down. I said no, not yet. Then from a lawyer representing other tenants, asking if I'd testify on their behalf. That one I said yes to, and then from a blocked number. I let it ring. I knew who it was. That night, I walked the perimeter of the building, just like I used to after Martha died, back when silence was still a stranger. The wall on the north side had fresh chalk drawings, a kid's idea of hope. Bright suns, stick figures holding hands, the words "Don't take our home" scribbled across 3 bricks. I knelt down and touched it. Then I noticed it. A small device tucked behind the rain gutter. Black. Plastic. Blinking red. A listening bug. My mouth went dry, but my hands stayed steady. I pried it loose and pocketed it. They were still watching. Still listening. Even after the arrests. And that told me one thing. They weren't done. Next morning, the story took another turn. Breaking: Marlowe Urban Vice President agrees to testify in exchange for immunity. He cracked. The number 2 man in the company. Quiet. Always behind the scenes. Now turning over records, emails, burner phone logs, everything. I read the line twice. Sources say the VP confirmed deliberate targeting of low-income tenants through forged documentation and planned code violations. They said the word out loud. Deliberate. That changed everything. By noon, the City Council voted unanimously to suspend all construction permits tied to Marlowe Urban pending a full audit. The demo at Holloway? Frozen. Oscar came barreling into my apartment, laptop under his arm. They stopped it, he shouted. Mr. G, they freaking stopped it. I didn't say anything for a long time, just nodded. Then finally whispered, Martha would have liked that. But the quiet didn't last, because later that night, at exactly 1:17 a.m., my window shattered. A brick came through the glass, wrapped in a scrap of a newspaper clipping. It was my face on the page. The article headline, Building Hero or Dangerous Provocateur? Someone had scrawled across it in red marker, You're not a hero. You're next. Blood buzzed in my ears. I stood motionless for a second, then walked over and picked it up. Glass crunched beneath my feet. I didn't flinch, just added it to the evidence folder. Intimidation attempt number 4. Then I sat at the table, flipped open a new legal pad, and began drafting a list. Witness statements, court date confirmations, building security audit results, surveillance footage log, Oscar's drone archives, bug location and frequency. They wanted to scare me? I'd drown them in documentation. Because this wasn't just personal anymore. Now the whole city was watching, and I was going to show them what happens when you push a man too far for too long. At sunrise, I got another email from Eleanor, the reporter. Subject line, they're still trying to spin it. Attached, a press release from Marlowe's legal team, still claiming innocence, blaming a disgruntled former city employee and an orchestrated smear campaign. I sent her my reply in 3 words, they're still lying. Then I pulled out my phone, opened the folder labeled Release Final, and began uploading it to the public archive. Every file, every video, every soundbite. If they wanted to win in public, they'd have to fight on my battlefield now. But Marlowe had one more card. At 3 p.m., a news alert dropped. Devin Marlowe released on bail pending trial. He was out. And something told me he wasn't planning to wait for court. The sky that night felt wrong. Too still. No wind. No city hum. Just a kind of vacuum silence, the kind you hear before something happens. I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table in the half-light, watching the red LED from the hallway camera blink like a heartbeat. Steady. Waiting. Oscar had set up 5 of them now. 2 in the lobby. 1 in the elevator shaft. 1 overlooking the service alley. And 1, the important one, tucked inside the old janitor closet just across from the electrical control room. That's where they'd try again, if they had the guts. And I had a feeling they did. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching from. 2:14 a.m., the camera blinked. Oscar's phone chirped. He'd programmed motion triggers. I grabbed mine, opened the feed. Grainy footage. Dark hallway. Then movement. A man. Ball cap pulled low. Black hoodie. Tool bag slung over one shoulder. Big. Rushed. Not a resident. Not a cop. Not a maintenance man. And not stupid, he paused to look for cameras. But not smart enough to find the one inside the damn closet. He entered the electrical room. Seconds later, the hallway lights flickered. Then the panel sparked. And that's when Oscar pressed record. Is that him? Oscar whispered, staring at the phone. I zoomed in, frame by frame. There, just before the panel door shut, a clear side profile. Devin Marlowe. No mask. No gloves. He wasn't just back. He was doubling down. I picked up my landline and dialed Eleanor. No voicemail. Direct. Turn on the feed I gave you, I said. Why? He's here. Now. 3 minutes later, the building fire alarm screamed to life. Red strobes lit the walls. The sharp buzz of emergency tones shook the pipes. Smoke began seeping from under the service door, thick, chemical oily. They were trying to burn it down again. But this time, we were filming. Residents poured into the hallway, coughing, some shouting. Oscar ran up to the roof to launch the drone. I ran to the lobby and hit the manual override, unlocking the emergency doors. Out on the sidewalk, the fire department was already pulling up. Someone must have called from a lower floor. By the time they made it inside, the smoke was thick, but the fire was still local, small ignition near the main breaker, fed by accelerant, same as last time. But now there was evidence. And not just mine. One of the firefighters wore a GoPro. Department policy. He filmed Marlowe's footprints in the soot. Caught the corner of his tool bag before he escaped through the basement stairs. Oscar followed with the drone. From the roof, we watched the little quadcopter track him across the lot, past the back fence, onto 14th Street. He ran like a rat flushed from a tunnel. But he forgot something. This time, the whole damn maze had eyes. By 5 a.m., Marlowe was in custody again. This time, there was no bail. Eleanor broke the story before the sun came up. Developer caught in second arson attempt. Live footage implicates Marlowe in midnight attack. And beneath the headline, a screen cap of the moment his face turned into the camera. Shock. Recognition. Fear. The exact second he realized he'd lost. The article ended with a quote from me. You can lie on paper. You can even lie in court. But fire doesn't lie. And neither do cameras. At noon, the mayor held a press conference. He didn't mention my name, but he didn't have to. He suspended all pending redevelopment contracts. Launched an internal ethics probe. Promised new laws for protecting senior tenants from corporate intimidation. For once, it wasn't just talk. The city was shaking. And the name Holloway had become something more than a building. It was a story. A line in the sand. That evening, I sat on the rooftop with Oscar. Wind finally returned. Clean. Cold. The low S, Holloway, stood whole. Scorched, but still here. Just like me. Oscar passed me a bottle of grape soda. His victory drink. You did it, he said. No, I said. We did. He grinned. You think he'll try again? No, I said. He won't get the chance. I pulled out a small metal tag from my pocket. It used to hang on the inside of the old fuse panel. I'd welded it there myself years ago. It read, Built by us. Grayson, 1991. Now it sat in my palm, burned at the edges, but legible. Proof of what I'd made. Proof of what I'd protected. I closed my fist around it. Let them build their towers, I muttered. This one's mine. The courtroom was cold. Not just from the AC, it was the kind of cold that lives in marble and sealed windows and polished wood. The kind of cold where people wear suits to pretend they're not scared. I wasn't scared. I was tired. But I was ready. The state versus Devin Marlowe. 5 felony charges. Attempted arson. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Forgery. Witness intimidation. Endangerment of public safety. They offered him a deal early on. He said no. He thought he could beat it. But when the jury watched the hallway footage, his face, his hands, his stupid confidence caught in full motion, I saw the moment his lawyer sank 2 inches into the chair. And when Eleanor's article went national, it was over. This wasn't a local fight anymore. It was a message. You don't get to erase people just because they're old or quiet or in your way. The day of sentencing, the judge, a woman in her 50s with the eyes of someone who'd seen too much, stared at Marlowe for a long time before she spoke. This wasn't a business mistake, she said. It was cruelty. Calculated. You tried to burn down a home, not just a building, but a place where people felt safe. She gave him 18 years. He didn't look at me once as they took him away. But I watched him. Because people like that don't look back, they only look forward, until there's a wall in front of them. Well, now you had one. Concrete. Steel. No elevator views. 3 weeks later, I sat with Eleanor and Oscar on the same park bench where it all started. She asked if I wanted to speak at a town hall. No, I said. Let the story speak for itself. Oscar handed me a flash drive. Here's the archive. All of it. The footage. The interviews. Even the chalk drawings from the kids. What am I supposed to do with it? He shrugged. Frame it. Bury it. Or keep it for the next time they try something like this. I looked at him. Kid was 12, but he understood more about truth than most adults I'd met. Thanks, I said. The city kept its promise. The Holloway wasn't sold. It wasn't knocked down. It got funding for restoration, for elevators that didn't jerk between floors, for heat in winter, and working fire alarms in every unit. Some of the tenants moved out, sure, but not because they were forced. They left knowing someone finally stood up. I still get notes under my door sometimes. Little ones. Thank you. You saved my mom. We still have our home because of you. I don't always reply, but I keep everyone. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. City Planning Office. They're renaming the building. The Grayson. I didn't ask for it. Didn't want it. But maybe, just maybe, it's good for people to remember. That one old man with a camera, a few tools, and a backbone can still hold the line. The nights are quiet again now. No sirens. No smoke. Just wind moving through the alleyways and the soft hum of life inside these walls. I sit out on the roof some evenings, grape soda in hand, and I watch the city breathe. It still has a lot to fix. But not this block. Not anymore. They tried to silence me with fire. I answered with truth. And now the whole city listens.